This is the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast with Greg Smith and Jay Foreman. Tell it to me straight up.
Hello, and welcome in to the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast, proudly part of the Hurrdat Varsity Network. I'm Greg Smith, your burnt-in, loving, obnoxious Laker fan friend.
Oh, this is Jay Foreman, your obnoxious LeBron James fan, and all the way bootleg Hall of Fame Husker as of last year.
Listen, I don't think I've ever actually, congratulations, by the way, on what you called, not me, your bootleg Husker Hall of Fame.
Right. Well, it was kind of bootleg because, first of all, they sent the letter to my old address, right, to the old Honeycomb Hideout. So when you were actually the first person to text me that morning, and you were like, congratulations.
Oh, yeah, that's why. I was looking, I couldn't remember how that happened. Yeah, because I broke the news to you.
I was like, dang, well, what did I do, right? So I was like, what's up, man? What congratulations about what? You was like, you in there, and then you sent me the thing, and I was like, dude, I didn't even know.
Yeah, we got the release on that before you even saw it at the house.
And the letter was actually dated like 2 months prior, so I should have known. I didn't even know about it until you told me. And then literally after you texted me, then everybody else must have seen it on Facebook or something. So, you broke the ice. Okay. So we go way back, right?
Yeah, so let it be known that I broke news. And we good. That's all good. Well, welcome in again to the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast. Now, this is technically the first episode that people are really getting directed to, but this is our now third time.
Right? So this is the first one
recording together.
Everything else has been underground. Now we above ground now.
Yeah, we're official now. Now we're official. Right. We're in here with producer Sasha. We got a nice little logo behind us. Like it feels official now.
So it's like a relationship that goes Facebook official or Twitter official, right?
It's Facebook official. You don't want it to be Twitter official because it goes down in the DMs. At least that's what I hear. I don't know anything about that.
Well, I just figure. Everybody goes to social media for that's like the Bible. Where people let me go check your Facebook, or whatever. So I guess we're officially. Yeah.
We are now Facebook official. This is the podcast where we'll talk about a little bit of everything, right? Like we have kind of been working on putting this together, and it's been a long time coming. We really wanted to do this. Jay and I are excited to bring this to you guys. It's really our take on all of the things that happen in sports, Husker related, not Husker related, NFL, college football, golf, tennis, whatever catches our eye.
Right,
is what we'll end up talking about on this podcast.
And there's plenty to talk about. The one thing I always say about sports, it's always drama filled. It's drama filled, excuse me. But the one thing about just Husker football and football in general, it's like a modern day soap opera. So like, my grandma would be watching General Hospital and all that, and that's what
watching her stories.
You're right. You're watching her stories. There's always a story going on. You know what I'm saying? And even when you think about, I watched the TCU against Texas. And, obviously Nebraska has a little connection with J.D. Spellman. Mm-hmm. And if you remember last week, he didn't have an explosive game, and then he only had one catch for 20 yards this week. So that's drama-filled there because you're thinking as this season's starting to ramp up, right, and on an offensive side of the ball for Nebraska, their biggest hole when you think of it is the wide receivers. Yes, they got some guys coming in, and they look good in practice, and they have, their bigger guys where you think of Manning and stuff like that. But they don't have any production.
Right.
And so the guy that could have produced or should have produced and had the opportunity, right, or thought of he had the opportunity is down there at TCU, and he's not putting up numbers. So that eventually, if this happens, which would be bode well for Nebraska, is if these receivers, say like by the third or fourth game, start to try to take off, then you're going to be seeing. I guarantee you somebody's going to put up the stats.
Oh, that's coming. Come on, that's
collage.
Coming. Yeah.
I guess I call it collage. I only post pictures of me and my family or whatever. They'll have it there. J.D. Spellman, J.D. Spellman through 4 games and Omar Manning through 4 games.
Yeah, they're going to do something. Coming. Yeah,
and so maybe we should do that first. So we gotta get on it first.
Maybe. But we just told the people now they're going to take our idea.
That's all right. That's the way it usually goes, right?
Yeah, usually. Yeah. That's okay. But that definitely is going to happen. And it's not even in a necessarily a mean-spirited way, just a comparison, because it's just always going to be that natural comparison when a guy leaves the program, and it doesn't have to be mean. It's competition.
We're just competition, a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of anger. You got to be happy for them. I'm all for kids. If you want to play football, I don't care if you go play on Mars. And if it didn't work out for you in Nebraska, which I don't see how it didn't for JD, right? Because he would have probably left with all the records, which
every record,
which, it's here nor there. It's like a.
But sometimes it doesn't mean as much to people, somebody,
right?
Yeah,
and you want to win or whatever. But the few times that I talked to him, I swear it was like talking to that wall over there, and I literally was telling him, JD, if you just stick it out for 6 more months, which generally that's what the football season is, you can not only write yourself a ticket for a legacy, but for a lifetime. And just wasn't ready, just was kind of bouncing off. It's kind of like playing ping pong against yourself. You don't want to get but you know what? He deep down, he's a good kid, misunderstood. And, you wish him all the best. You wish he was still here, but it's not going to happen.
Now sticking in the Big 12, we're going to get to this first topic because each week we're going to go through and we'll have a couple of staple segments in the show. The first one will always be what we're going to call Coach Speak, where we basically go through something that somebody said. It doesn't always have to be a coach, and tell you what they actually meant.
Coach Speak to Real Talk.
So the first one that we're going to go over, it comes in, and we're going to do a little double dip here with some old friends. Like I said, sticking in the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma. The Sooners are now 0-2 and unranked for the first time this century, which is nuts when you say it out loud. Yeah. And Coach Lincoln Riley said this after the game, quote, "I know nobody wants to hear it right now, but we're close. We're probably even closer than we think we are."
That's like
what does that mean?
That means he's trying to. It's like somebody going on and pee on you, telling you it's raining. When a coach tries to tell you we're close and we're even closer than we think we are, you're actually farther
right,
than you ever thought you would be.
Yeah.
Because every coach and every player has went through 2-a-days and went through spring ball in a normal year, and you go in and you can kind of project when the offense is going to take off, when the defense is going to take off. And Lincoln Riley every year pulls up to one Sooner drive and knows or thinks that no matter who plays for him, regardless if it's Rattler, Jalen Hurts or anybody like that, they're going to be able to score 40-some points, right? And they're just going to be able to make enough plays on defense to be, formidable and, run through the Big 12. Well, that's not happening anymore. And this is also a good thing in college football, but then also it's a bad thing for Oklahoma because when you show a chink in your armor of the main staple of what you're known for, like remember he was supposed to be the Dallas Cowboys coach. It was all for
he could have left if he wanted to. Didn't feel like he really wanted to go take that job. Yeah,
I'm sure he's probably Dallas is horrible, but
yeah, they're not.
When you show a chink in your armor like that, it's like you show all your bad warts, and there's going to be teams that are coming attacking it, and it's been something that's kind of been brewing over the last couple of years, because you got to think the way Alabama beat them down when Kyler Murray was there, the year before, Kansas State is beat them up physically.
Yeah, Kleiman is 2-0 against them.
2-0 against them. So your playbook on how to beat Oklahoma is out there, and so as close as he thinks he is, he's actually really far because even the guys like their DBs like Bookie and stuff like he does not look good, but he's playing just because of longevity and he's too small. He's like a man without a position. And so your defense was actually supposed to be a little bit better this year just because of experience. Yeah. I know they lost Murray and all that, but Oklahoma is 2 or 3 deep at every position.
They should be based on their recruiting profile and how, the guys that they bring in, even on defense too. Right. Because remember they made a big deal when Alex Grinch came in and took over the defensive coordinator spot. The big deal was twofold. One, he's a better defensive coordinator, so we're going to get this thing figured out. We're going to actually pay attention to defense, and we're going to change the type of guys that we recruit on defense and get some guys that are a little more physical, a little more nasty on defense, and we're going to really get this thing going. We're going to marry that with the offense, and we're going to get a national championship contender, a legitimate one out here, and that has not gone. It
actually went the other way because they can't run the ball effectively, which means that they can't throw the ball effectively. And when you have a young quarterback, regardless if he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, he's barely 6 feet tall. Number one, okay, so and he's not Kyler Murray fast.
No, Kyler Murray he's next level.
Kyler Murray is like stupid quick and fast, and he's a world-class athlete. Yeah. Professional in baseball and obviously in football. When you have that and you have a young quarterback, if you can't run the football, you might be able to throw for some yards, but they're kind of like those dummy yards. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to make big mistakes, and that's what you saw, at the end of the game against Iowa State, because when you go from a high school quarterback or high school offense, you only see 1 or 2 coverages.
Right. Now
what teams are doing, they're actually calling coverages so you could call the play so they can make the play, later in the game. They're actually, and it sounds weird that you're giving up yards in, say, the second or third quarter to stop it in the, end of the third quarter and fourth quarter. But that's what happens. And, quarterback play is something that Oklahoma's offense is predicated on. They have to play really, really at a high level. He's not there yet. So once you don't have that ability to outscore somebody and you got to play small ball, I call it 4-minute type of offense ball, and it's a recipe for disaster. And luckily enough, the only other team that can actually match them and do that, it would be Oklahoma State, but they have Mike Gundy, and he'll find a way to lose.
Yeah, they will. He'll find a way
to lose Bedlam when they should be. They were talking about them in the Final Four,
right?
Oklahoma. And
it feels like they always lose that game. I don't know what the actual record is.
They always
but it feels
lose
like Oklahoma State loses that game,
and they're always up. They'll be up by 11 points, 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and end up losing by 4 because they'll, obviously, they'll give up, touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
Right, and I guess and the other side of this equation of this whole Oklahoma situation is their hated rival Texas finds himself in a similar situation where they lost to an unranked team, TCU, like we started off the show talking about this weekend. They're sitting at 1-1, and after their game, Tom Herman said, "quote, we can't continue to beat ourselves the way that we have these last 2 weeks and expect to win many more ball games. That's on me to get them ready and find a way to make sure that we don't beat ourselves."
Well, I mean, what he said is exactly true, but I don't know who their sports information director is. You should have gave him 5 more minutes, because when you say a quote like that, you're essentially writing your death certificate. Well, we don't have any discipline. We turn the ball over too much, and we make too many big mistakes, and it's on me. So that means you just said those 3 major things, and you signed off on it. So
you gave all the ammunition.
All the ammunition, just push play. It's almost like do you remember when Bo Pelini got interviewed? I don't know who it was, and he's like, "I don't think long term. I just think right now."
Yeah,
that's a death sentence.
And sometimes, and we've had plenty of those here in Nebraska.
Sure.
The which now that they all run together, was it Icourse that said that I had to evaluate at the end of the day where Iowa was.
Right.
All of those.
And we brought in Mike Riley.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah. Like those come back to haunt you, and and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the first thing I thought of too when I read this Tom Herman statement. Is that he basically just gave all of the reasons to why it hasn't been working for him at Texas. And people can't, it's hard to, at least for me, as a college football fan, as somebody who obviously writes about and observes it, is I can never figure out why Texas is not better than they are. But then he just told you it's the discipline. It's all of the little stuff, because when you show up as Texas, you should, in most cases, except for maybe when you play Oklahoma, because they've been out recruiting them, you're going to have better athletes on the field. You have, outside of the football field, you have all the money in the world, right? You have all the world-class facilities, every fan support, all of it. But they can't find a way to really take that step forward. And I think that it is that discipline, and it's going to be real interesting to me to see what happens with Texas this year. If let's say, because they play each other this week, what we were going to is Oklahoma and Texas play each other this week, Red River Shootout. It's the most interested in that game I've been in years, because whoever loses this game is effectively done for the rest of the season. Yeah. And if it's Texas that loses this game, that hot seat is hot.
Oh, hot. It's burning.
And what do you do in the age of COVID with coaches and trying to fight? Because he has a
$21 million.
It's 3 years left and $21 million on that deal.
Just got a new contract.
Just got it.
Yeah.
So if you're Texas, who has all the money in the world, are they going to be immune to wanting to get rid of guys and pay that buyout? Or will they even clutch the purse strings a little bit more, knowing that, we're in some unprecedented times and it's going to be real hard to pay that big buyout, but at the same time, they want to win, right? Yeah. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting kind of going forward with them. And it's a huge game, because on the other side, the Oklahoma goes 0-3. That's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to look up, and it would have been like 1917 would be the last time that Oklahoma was 0-3 or something like that, which is not good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously Lincoln Riley won't be on any type of hot seat. But for Herman, if I was Texas, I probably wouldn't pull the plug on him that quick, because I would like to see how he finished the season, because
see how he bounced back.
And you have to always like pause when if you're an athletic director or a president, whoever's making this decision, is because there is no like guarantee that Texas is gonna beat Oklahoma if they are the better team. When you play a rivalry game, rival in a game like that, all bets are off.
Right.
It's like Florida State, Miami upset, or Colorado State, or think of those like deep-rooted rivalry games. It's something that you can't do because unless there's a blowout, where you get just blown smooth out the game, then you might have to pull the plug on him. But I think with Tom Herman, he's done enough to get a new contract here recently, and the money factor, that's a lot of money to still owe him. Now, if he doesn't finish on a high note, for the rest of the year and play well, I guess in their bowl game, that's obviously assuming that they'll finish out the season. Next year, he will be on the hot seat. And if he starts out if this is next year, 2021, he's gone after 3 weeks. You can see him being fired.
Yeah, and it's tough. I kind of lean your way, especially with kind of the unprecedented time, is that you just have to. You do have to exercise some patience. Everything is a little weird, right?
Right.
But man, I how hungry they are to turn this around, and the part of the problem is going to be the same thing that we saw last year with USC, which is why I thought they were going to fire Clay Helton. Is you have the big dog is sitting out there, right? The only guy that I think can really go toe to toe with Saban on a consistent basis is out there. Urban Meyer is out here living good on the BTN.
But he's got a good gig, though, man.
He does have a good gig, and he's good at that too. Like he's actually a lot. I don't know why I didn't think he would be good at that, but he's very good at being an analyst and breaking down all of the plays and everything like that. And it really shamed me for thinking that because he's one of the greatest coaches ever. But he's got a good job.
He's phenomenal.
But they're gonna try to go get him if they can.
He's phenomenal on TV, and this is one thing that people don't understand about coaches. Even if a coach is a crappy coach, they are a tight-knit community. Nebraska went through this. Even when they fired Frank Solich, coaches didn't want to come here because he got fired after winning 9 games. Bo Pelini, they talk. So just think if you're a coach, right? And I'm assuming Urban Meyer, he's tight with Herman though.
Yeah, he's on staff. Him.
So they talk. They're probably talking offline right now, right? So you got to think that is he going to go down there after they fired his boy during say like COVID and take that job because one, like I said, they're a tight knit community. It's almost like dating somebody's ex-girlfriend or something. So
it's
then
very small fraternity.
Very small fraternity. Then for another coach, say you're trying to hire who knows who to come in there. He's not. I wouldn't say scared, but he's going to be apprehensive because they just saw you fire somebody in unprecedented times. No spring ball, and kind of like a so-so type of 2-a-day schedule.
Yeah.
And
with an abbreviated schedule,
and
all the
protocols, and you can't really coach, and you can't really get in there and do stuff. You had to go 2 or 3 weeks without any contact. It'd be very hard for Texas to pull off a big hire, a Texas type of hire, and that's the only thing. The only way that you can. There's only 2 people Texas can really hire from here on out: Urban Meyer, and Nick Saban. That's it. And if you're gonna go to Nick Saban, you're gonna have to get that man like $10, $11, $12 million a year.
So can I tell my like wild conspiracy theory hot take on the whole Nick Saban and Texas thing? Remember a few years ago when he was strongly entertaining that job, and it might have been when Herman took it, when he ended up. There was
a lot of talk.
There was a lot of talk about that, and I thought Nick Saban actually was really honest about why he didn't take it. And I can't remember what venue he was in when he said this, but he said that if he had been younger, he would have considered it more because he just did not want to go through the whole overhaul of a program, because he had Alabama up and running. So I really think that that's absolutely a job that Nick Saban, when he took the Alabama job, if that Texas job was up, like he would have taken that then.
Oh yeah.
But it's just so hard because Nick Saban is in such a great position, and this is not like he did not luck into this by any stretch of imagination. He created this at Alabama, but it almost is at the point where it's just self-sustaining, right? Where they all believe in everything that he says. He goes out on a recruiting trail, locks down number 1 classes almost every year. Right. He gets these guys in. He has a system to then break them down after they come into the program. They've got older guys already in the program to model that behavior, and then they go out and win 10 games again, and they're competing in the playoff. Like it's turnkey. Rinse and repeat every year.
It's turnkey. They reload instead of rebuild, and
they're doing it again right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Alabama's not going to let him go. I mean, if Texas want him, they're going to have to come in with like stupid money where Nick Saban be like, look, man, I can't turn down $14 million.
Right, that's scared, dude.
And then
like Miss Terry would just be mad at me.
Right, yeah. So, but you know, I mean, that's their only options after Herman. I'd like to think that they would give him the rest of this year and next year to turn it around, and he should be man enough, as he was when he kind of told on himself, you know, in that quote, to really understand where he's at. Where losing to TCU, even though TCU is a top, in my opinion, always a top 15 program.
Yeah, they're always a program that even though they were unranked coming into the game, they're always a team that you don't really want to see. Like it's just certain ones, certain.
You don't want to see them. You don't want to see them down in Dallas either.
Coach, yeah, it's just always a tough team, even when they're a little down.
Right,
they're still a team that's going to give you a fight.
They're always going to have big physical athletes. They're always going to have guys on defense get drafted. And you know, I mean, they just had a corner this year, got drafted really high, and they're always going to kind of be able to score points, and they do it kind of funny. Some years they have a good running back, and then some years they just throw it all around the map, you know, all around the field. But a lot of the TCU kids were probably turned down by Texas.
Yeah, it gives you that edge.
Yeah,
right?
So I mean, if you think about it, you got like Texas Tech, that's kind of like the bottom, right? They never got a sniff from like even, you know, a Texas A&M or Texas. The TCU kids probably wanted to go to one of those two, but got turned down. So they playing extra harder. I mean, they're playing like
they want to show them.
They got that little brother mentality, and so for Texas to go down there and get beat, I'm not really surprised. I'm surprised that Texas has continued in the second week to play like they did in week one.
Yeah, the mistakes. It's the penalties. The penalties and the turnovers.
And the turnovers, the lack of discipline. Those are things like, okay, the first week you get it. Everybody's excited, and that's what you expect. Mm-hmm. You know, you cover high school sports. You see a lot of missed tackles, turnovers, you know, procedure penalties. That's fine. But then to double down on it the next week, you only can assume is that it wasn't addressed in practice and in the meeting. So it's something that Tom Herman needs to right because even though Oklahoma is 0-2, they're a dangerous 0-2. And I can promise you, Lincoln Riley is going to have them boys ready to play.
Absolutely.
And they're going to put on the best performance that they've had up to date against Texas, because they're going to be, even though they're 0-2, Texas is 1-1. It's still 0-0, and they're going to be playing. And I think it's going to be an exciting game. Yeah,
it should be a lot of fun to see that all play out, because there's be some desperation out there.
Oh. You're going to see some trick plays. Yeah, I mean, I can guarantee you they're going back to plays that might have worked against, you know, a defensive coordinator that on their staff or an offensive coordinator from years past. They have to run trick plays. They got to go for broke.
Yep.
Because if you're 0-2, what's the point? Okay, if you're 0-2, what's the difference between 0-2 and 0-3? You barely have a chance. You're on thin ice. You got to go for it.
Let it all out there.
Let it all out there.
Now, it's interesting as we switch gears here.
Let's break that down.
And we teased this. If you go back and listen to that kind of episode 0 that we put out last week, we kind of teased that there'd be more Husker information this week to talk about. Boy, there was plenty. I feel like we got overran with information as we got to talk to the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. We heard from Scott Frost. We heard the tight ends coach. We heard from everybody.
JoJo Doman on there.
JoJo was out there. Deontay Williams. We heard of a whole host of players. Jack Stoll, Cam Jurgens. We got to talk to for the first time.
He had a big article, and then they, you know, the Husker, you know, social media has done a really good job of, you know, they're showing a lot of like highlights from practice.
Yeah, they've done a nice job with that.
They've taken it up a notch, and so
it feels like the season is
upon us, right? It's like when you get the countdown. I know I count down to Thanksgiving because I know it's rubber dub dub, let's grub time. You know what I mean? So it's about to be. I think college football has been kind of. I wouldn't say. I mean, because there's been some big games. You know, Georgia played, you know, against Auburn this week. So there's been some big games. And I'll say this, and I'll keep moving on. That Tennessee Volunteers team. They for real.
They're starting to look like it. I feel like we need to start paying attention to what Jeremy Pruitt's got going on.
But I think that all the games up to now, even though there's been exciting games and there's been some upsets, and I think the Iowa State game was a great game. Yep. Great atmosphere for the limited, you know, amount of, you know, crowd fare. I think the whole college football season is going to get started in a couple of weeks when the Big Ten and everybody's playing.
Yeah, when everybody is back.
Everybody is playing. Yeah. And, you know, Nebraska, you know, they drew the silver bullets. That's what the Ohio State Buckeyes call themselves, especially that defense. So it's going to be interesting. But we got a lot of Husker information. Got to see some faces, which is good. See them talk, and so you can kind of, put it all together. And, I think that they're, Shenander had a really good quote where they said, look, I want to coach football, and these kids want to play. And he said, look, in order to be the best, we got to play against the best. We got to beat them. Yeah,
I thought that was really good, too. And I think it's the right tone that you want to hear from the coaching staff and especially the players. I like that the players were even more hammering that message home. And one of the other things that Shenander also introduced to everybody, and so did Deontay Williams, I think Deontay Williams said it first, and then Shenander talked about it, was the word energy. And how that's become kind of the rallying cry for this offseason. And I thought that this was very well put, that they essentially have to kind of create their own energy because they know that they won't have the benefit of the large crowd of Memorial Stadium. Sure. They, when you go on the road in the Big Ten, you're playing in almost all big stadiums as well. So you got some juice in the crowd there. And it was actually offensive coordinator Matt Lubick who had a really good quote on this too. He said it about the crowd and the energy you feed off with those guys. He says, quote, "It helps us in a way where it kind of hurts the team in general sometimes with your energy. We're lucky that we have here the best fan base in college football. When our crowd is going nuts, our players feed off of that. We have a tremendous home field advantage, so that's the definite downside of not having that."
Sure.
And so I honestly, and it's weird, I had not, in all the talk about getting these games going and the protocols and we're excited to talk to people this past week, I had not thought about this until they said it this week, that it's going to be really strange for the guys now to have to play in, and it's not going to be completely empty because you can have they haven't said how many, but some friends and family are going to be there.
You're going to really find out where you stand there, right?
Yeah, right. You can find out how close of a friend and family am I if I could get one of these 4 tickets. Sorry, Grandma, it's going to be tough. But what do you think that's going to be like for them trying to get, because you already have situations say an 11 o'clock game when there are fans, it's totally different in there versus a night kickoff.
Sure.
So then how are they going to operate within that, and what can you draw on to be able to get that going?
Well, I mean, the best thing about it is you're going to find out who's internally motivated football player and who's actually very, very competitive. That's what you're going to find out, because I go around and speak a little bit to teams, and I talk to, I coach, youth, and I said, I tell them this, look, when we play games, all we're doing is showing everybody how we practice. That's it. That's all that really, when you think about, when you really want to break this down and peel it back to the bare bones, when you go out there on Saturday, all you doing is showing everybody what you did and do in practice. That's why practice is so important. Right. Now, granted, the crowd and everything, you feed off it. But at the end of the day, when we used to go on the road, after the second quarter, the crowd ain't going to help you. Because I'm here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's tear your behind up. So you got to be able to match it. You got to be able to match it and then some. So it's going to, I would like to see our team or our staff simulate it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Get them up on a Saturday, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And have 11 o'clock practice and have a full-on scrimmage. So they're not going on the road to Ohio State and shock. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Ohio State, they're going to be motivated. You ain't got to worry about them playing with energy.
No, they have a legitimate national championship aspirations,
but their players and their culture is already built that way. Right. They already have very competitive practices. They're very physical. So it's just going to be just like another day to them. So when you're playing against a team that's already where you're at physically and mentally, you have to be able to do things prior. So when you get there, you're not down 38-0. Right. You know what I'm saying? So they know they got to watch the game from last year. They got to first get the courage to step up to the challenge, right? And really look at, don't close your eyes when you're watching that beatdown. Take it all in, go out there and practice and not forget about it, motivate you to do better and not just play to not get blown out, play to win. Right. And the difference between playing not to get blown out and playing to win is probably like the width of this line. Yep. And it's just, you have to go out there and not be afraid to make mistakes, but you got to go out there and let it all hang out. And so they have to go out there and not be tentative. And the only way to do that is simulate it during the week, prior week. So when you're showing up to the game, it's just like second nature, hopefully second nature, but it's going to play a big factor. And you see it a lot. I mean, if there's a team, you're going back to Tom Herman, if you saw how they played in the first week, you know that they were going to show up the next week playing against that was going to be a question mark whether they were going to be really motivated. They weren't even motivated in week 1.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're playing against a team that you're superior coaching, athletic ability, roster, quarterback play. You got one of the better quarterbacks in the whole nation,
right.
That put up big numbers, and you're going down to the wire in week 1 and then you're losing in week 2 against a somewhat local guy, Max Duggan, that just got okay to play.
Right.
He didn't even play in week 1.
Right.
Yeah. So you got a guy that just came from, probably playing PlayStation 4 or 5 or whatever you got.
The 5's not out yet. I'm trying to get that.
Okay, 4, my bad. So playing PlayStation 4 and just came out and just started doing work on you and ran through. I can guarantee if you line Max Duggan on the goal line against every single Texas linebacker and DB, there's no way in the world he'd finish if there was 20 of them that he would be faster than 4 of those guys.
Right.
But he ran for 20-some yards right up the middle of your defense. That's a lack of motivation, discipline, and like you said, energy. So the good thing for Nebraska is that they're all rallying behind it, and they actually needed more energy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that that was something that they needed to play with consistently anyway, because you could see it during games is that it dips. Like you kind of have that time where, everybody gets fired up for the tunnel walk. You come out there and your energy is high. And as soon as that first punch is thrown, it drops, right? And that's something that I think they needed to work on either way. Like you said, I think whether or not they were selling out Memorial Stadium or they had nobody in there, it was just them and the Crickets, like they needed to have a better sense of energy and sustained energy throughout games. I definitely agree with that.
Well, and the way you can simulate it in practice is really stop practice. Okay, all right, look, sudden change. Get out there. Don't let them drink. Don't let them get too comfortable. You know what I'm saying? So if you always do like your group work at the beginning of practice, oh no, you're going at the end. We're warming up and we're getting right after it. Because that's how you got to really shock the system for these kids. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not used to, or they're too used to doing the same thing. Right. Oh, we're going through group work. All right, we're going to go 7-on-7. Now we're going to go 1-on-1s. Okay, we get a water break. Special teams do, 2, inside, outside run, blitz period. See you. Oh, no. Right. Let's go blitz period, 1-on-1s, good on good, and then get the group work at the end.
I wonder, I wonder, though, if you're more prone this year in this offseason to fall into those habits and routines because you had to go so long without hitting that you also fall prey to that and you fall into a pattern. That would be a very good question for Scott the next time we talk to him, I assume next Thursday or this coming Thursday. We're recording this on a Monday, about how if they've decided to mess with the variation of their routine. I think they are practicing in the stadium, and we talked about the social media videos. At least one of those was in the stadium. Sure. I was reading over the weekend that Ohio State is doing the same thing, that they went out and did that in their stadium too. And I think Ryan Day said afterwards that it was more so they could get used to playing in the big empty stadium, so they knew what was going on. But I really like your idea of, we're going to do a Saturday practice. If you're in Nebraska, we're going to do a Saturday practice, and we're going to go out there at 11 a.m. We're just going to simulate going out and doing a hard scrimmage or simulate a game so that you get used to what this is going to be like. Because I would even take it this far. I'd run the tunnel walk. I'd do it all because then you do all that stuff. We shoot off one firework. We don't be wasteful. We shoot off one firework, and then we go out there and play, because the difference between blasting the music and getting fired up and then going out there and it feeling like a library is going to be very different. And that is going to be a shock.
And I'm not playing there is no hip hop or nothing during practice. We straight.
Yeah, in that case, we're just going to do
this is prison football right here. You know what I'm saying? We getting after it, man. I mean, you have to do it because Nebraska's in a unique position. You've been getting your head beat in for 2 years. Mm-hmm. You have a tremendous opportunity. Not only if they beat Ohio State, right? Say they did the first week, they don't got to do nothing for the rest of the season. I mean, that's to be honest.
Hang your hat on that one win.
If they beat Ohio State, they hoping COVID comes back, the season's over, they're the national champions, right? But you have a unique opportunity to not only show well against Ohio State, show well the next week against your rival, which I think in a lot of people's minds would be the upset. I don't think beating Wisconsin would be the upset. But then finishing out the season strong and leading right into spring ball and really having a legitimate program and everything else. So it's you have everything there. It's all set there for the table is set. Yep. Nebraska's just got to eat, and they have to. You can't. There is no excuses. You can't say, "Oh, well, we didn't have this. We didn't have." Look, everybody's playing. with the same deck of cards. There's no jokers out there. Nobody's got an advantage. Actually, Nebraska probably has more of an advantage than everybody else. Now you have to be able to step up to the plate and take advantage of the advantage that you have. And it's no different than beating the teams that you're supposed to. But now we got to go then some. Yeah. Let's beat the teams we're supposed to, and then beat a team that we've had trouble with in the last few years, and that's Iowa, Wisconsin. Throw in Penn State.
And one of those because I think that, and this was and we've talked about this person just a bunch off pod, is my issue with all of the kind of complaining about the schedule.
Right.
Because personally the way that I behave, I view everything as an opportunity. Even as something that's tough,
right.
How are we going to get busy with this thing and make it work? So when this schedule comes out, yeah, it's tough. It sucks.
Right. It sucks.
You got to play some tough teams out of the gate. And you got to be ready to go. But like you said, on the flip side of that, this is a season for Nebraska to build momentum. If you want to, it was going to be, before all of this in the pandemic, it was going to be a season to show the improvements that Frost and those guys had been talking about and wanting to make. This is now year 3 in the lab with Zach Duval, all of that. Now, though, it shifts a little bit to where it's just us showing that we can get some momentum going into the next real full season, right?
Sure.
And so the way that you do that is you don't go get blown out at Ohio State. You possibly beat them, but you have to show well. You know what the difference is. This is not that vague. You know the difference between, say, 2 years ago when they played Ohio State and hung in there at Ohio State versus what happened last year. There's just a huge difference in those. And then really the rest of those games, they are not toss-ups, but they are more attainable than what I think people realize, just because of how poorly Nebraska has played. Just if we really boil it down, if you take penalties and special teams and you get that corrected, or if you take creating turnovers by Nebraska's defense, which they haven't done well in special teams, I'm going to keep harping on special teams, you'll notice a theme, then they can win a lot more of these games, right? That's how you stop losing these games randomly to Indiana and Purdue and that sort of thing. Right. So Nebraska can do this, but the big thing is you want to be able to start to win some of those games so that for 2021 you hit the ground running. First of all, you go to the offseason program with a lot of confidence, because confidence has been something that's been missing. It's something that they try and project, but when the rubber meets the road, when you get out there in games, you can see that they're not always the most confident group. You want to start to build that confidence from games, not just the weight room and the hype in the offseason.
Yeah, the weight room sets you up for success. What you have to, and it's all they say, the chicken and the egg type of thing. You get confidence by, going out there and doing it over and over and over. And when you look at Alabama's, like I always look at their offensive line, Alabama and Iowa. The reason why they're so good in college is because they do the same thing over and over. So then it looks better. And you have to change the way you practice as well. 50-50 balls should always be, you got to have a winner and loser in practice. I'm not letting you catch a ball because it's an offensive period, that you're not getting anybody better. So you got to really up the competitive nature of practice. You got to become more physical, because once you do that, then it becomes like second nature. That's why teams like Ohio State, and you watched Alabama this weekend, and if you watch Tennessee and you watch how they tackled and you watch the energy and the speed that they played with, it's how they practice. They just don't show. I mean, the problem that I think we have two things in Nebraska over the last 10 years. One is leadership, because I think we tried to anoint our best players to be leaders, and they actually made them more individualized. So when they left, they didn't leave a legacy. You know what I'm saying? So everybody got on Tommy Armstrong by, I would say he looked like Daryl LaMonica, just dropping back and throwing out the screen, right? Who do you learn that from? Taylor Martinez. Right? So the legacy that was left, you just do whatever you want. There's no repercussion for it. There's no discipline. You're not going to lose it. You're going to keep playing and playing and playing, right? So then why would, as a younger player, see that, change any habits, right? So, and then another thing is, I think we've kind of morphed into this schedule watchers and try to find the easiest way to success. It's almost whether you want to call it the new age youth, or whatever you want to call them, generation X, or whatever you want to call these, whatever you want to call it. We've morphed into, let's see how we can get the easiest way to Indianapolis, and we deserve it. We deserve to get an easy route. Why do you think that Nebraska deserves some sort of easy route? We're new to the Big Ten, or we're new at certain times. We haven't won anything. We haven't even won a game except for the time that we beat Ohio State when the quarterback got hurt here when it was raining. Everybody left and Bo Pelini was like
that wasn't the first time.
Yeah, right. When Bo Pelini went crazy after the game, which was a great game. Pretty much Levante David won that game, right? Yeah. We haven't won anything. We haven't beat anybody. That you know what I'm saying? So why would we have an easy route? We're not even legacy. You know what I'm saying? We're new. We kind of opted in, and now we want the same treatment as everybody else has been here before and help build the conference. So we might have to toe, the hard road. And so until we prove that we're willing to break through that wall and toe the hard road without crying about it and complaining, they're going to keep doing more. They're going to keep. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to put Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, Minnesota, put them all five in.
That's all next year's schedule.
Yeah, right in a row.
But the thing I've been thinking about through this whole thing about the schedule, and you're talking about kind of like people want them to just have an easier road. Would it have mattered if they gave Nebraska an easier road? And by that I mean, all the roads feel hard when you haven't been doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? And that's why I always come back to you. And you said this earlier, and I said it too, about winning the games that you're quote unquote supposed to win. Because how we talked about like Texas, how when they show up, they're on paper better than a lot of teams. When Nebraska shows up, they are better on paper, recruiting average wise. I've done the numbers, than every team in the Big Ten West, including Wisconsin.
Sure.
Every team in the East, save for Ohio State and Penn State. Michigan is kind of teetering on that line because Nebraska actually under Scott Frost has out-recruited Michigan one year. They out-recruited Penn State one year. So it all kind of goes back and forth, which is totally fine, and they can continue to take steps up from there. But if they could ever take care of the teams they're supposed to and then start to take swings at teams like Ohio State and Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, who have had more established programs here recently. That's the formula. That's how you get it to where we look up and you see the schedule and you don't think it's so daunting because all of a sudden that game against Northwestern doesn't feel like it's going to be a dogfight anymore, right? Yeah. Like when Penn State gets their schedule, they're not looking at, oh man, it's tough. We got a game Purdue coming to town. Like people don't think that. Like it's just not the way that works.
Yeah,
so that's the way they have to start taking care of business, and then I promise you it'll feel like these schedules are easier when in fact they're the same. Your team is just better.
Right, and you got to think of like why would Purdue be scared of Nebraska? Why would Illinois be scared of Nebraska? Why would Minnesota be, I guess, quote unquote scared? And then if those three teams aren't scared, Ohio State ain't really going out there and thinking like, man, these boys are going to give us a run, right?
Right, and they came in, and so many what we've kind of seen through the first 10 years of Nebraska in the Big Ten is not only are they not afraid of Nebraska, they also take some joy in beating Nebraska. And part of it is a little bit of Nebraska's doing, and part of it is wanting to beat the new kid on the block, even if it's not as new. But part of it is I still think that there's a little bit of jealousy there, especially like say from Iowa, where they don't quite understand why Nebraska gets so much attention and there's so much going on. And so there's a lot going on there, and that's why to me, Nebraska just needs to punch back in a lot of those situations.
Yeah, and then that's been, I mean, even if you don't look at the last 2 years with Frost, Riley, Bo Pelini, when they played teams that I call it bite back, we just kind of just quit, and like withered. We get up by I never forget when under Bo Pelini, I think Taylor Martinez was the quarterback. They were up 21-0. As soon as Ohio State tied the game up, it was like something like 50-something straight unanswered points. So that let me know that when the competition gets thick and gets tough, it's not there. You have not created a culture to do it. That was the game that Papuchis, called the game when they were up 21-0, or Bo Pelini supposedly did. And once they start losing, he just, hey, here you go, dude. I'm down by 21. So it just gets to the point that where sooner or later Nebraska's just going to have to like take the leap of faith and do it. And there's no time like the present, because one thing I'll say is if you take Fields away, and I don't really necessarily believe the Minnesota quarterback is all that. So what other team has a better quarterback coming back on paper or media hype than us?
Right. And that's
what really separates teams.
And that to me is Nebraska's season. If we really, really boil it down and we get oversimplistic, to me the biggest and it's not even a wild card. It's just basically the biggest factor in Nebraska's season is which version of Adrian Martinez do you get? Do you get the version that takes a step from his freshman year? Because in theory, we should not be like, hey, let's get the freshman Adrian. It shouldn't even be that. That's not right either. Like, it should be like the baseline is what we saw freshman year, and then he takes a couple of steps forward because he's a true junior now and he's got more starting experience. Or do you see the sophomore slump Adrian? If you see the version that like Verduzco and Frost think they have, then it completely changes everything, right? It changes everything because when you have a dynamic quarterback, and you saw it in stretches in that first year, even when they were losing some of those close games, and that was a lot of penalties. Remember back that first year, they were just so bad with penalties and then turnovers too. A dynamic quarterback completely changes everything, which is what this system is kind of built on. Like, I know that and it's funny to me because like I know Verduzco likes to say, well, the quarterback is just one part of it, but I don't think it's any coincidence that they've always had dynamic quarterbacks. They're not out here trying to get, like, they're not Wisconsin trying to have just a caretaker, or Iowa that you just go hand the ball off to your star running back. That's not how they run that, right? So I think that you need a dynamic quarterback that's making correct, quick decisions because the offensive schemes guys open.
Right.
And so if you're making those quick decisions correctly, then it's really hard to stop this offense. You just didn't see that last year.
Right.
And then you start to get injuries on top of that.
Right. Well, if your offense is more consistent, then it makes your defense better.
Right.
Then in turn,
they can play a lot freer, and that's really how this defense is built too, as a complement to this offense.
But then that makes your special teams that much better.
Yep.
But when you're not producing on offense, it's kind of like a trickle-down effect. So it's not just Adrian scoring points or big runs. It's him just playing a position, playing quarterback. Pitch and catch, hit the open guy, make the right reads, use the clock properly, aka Iowa game.
Yeah, the Iowa game.
Okay, these are things that you can't do. The mental lapse. Quarterback is one position that you can't. Quarterback and middle linebacker, you cannot be if you're not playing well. The one thing you have to do is you got to be mentally on it.
Right.
And there's too many times where it's mentally he looked like he was at another game. It wasn't even him. So once if he gets that, I think also that will allow them to develop more depth with McCaffrey, if they use Smothers. Whereas, they get that free year, but, ideally they'd be up enough to where you can get these guys some real game reps. Then you don't have to worry about the injury concerns. Because right now, as much as everybody loves McCaffrey, and I'll admit he's in my opinion earned, a series or two, legit. You still don't know.
No, because it's only been 12 passes.
12 passes. He's not the lead dog because people don't understand. It's different when you come in as a backup and do your thing versus people, game planning for. And that's what happened to Adrian last year. People went in the offseason and said, okay, Divine's gone, Stanley Morgan's gone. Okay, let's see what he does well. Let's see what he doesn't do well. And looked at the things that he didn't do well or what could potentially have success against him, and it really confused him last year.
Yeah, it definitely did. Now, hey, to wrap up this show, we want to go through another segment. We talked off top about the segments that we'll have. I think it's going to end up being my favorite segment. I'm just going to put that out there now. We call it Put Them on Blast.
Put them on blast.
And we'll go ahead and we'll go through each week. It can be a wide range of situations that we go through that basically is somebody that needs to be put on blast. And my first one is one that I promise I will not make a habit out of calling out high school kids' parents because it is a little weird when you do that. But I don't know if you guys heard about this situation. Jake Garcia, he's a 4-star quarterback. He was out in California. He's actually a 4-star kid committed to USC, okay, which I think is important in this. It's not a kid that's just trying to get on and find some sort of scholarship out there because he thinks he should be able to play college football. He has moved to Georgia to be able to play high school football, and it gets crazier because he moved to Georgia, but the rules in Georgia high school football basically made it to where his parents needed to separate. They need to get a divorce so that he could then be eligible to play. Now, his parents got quote-unquote divorced. He moved down there with his dad. He actually played in the team's first game. Then their second game, he played well too. Threw for 332 and 2 touchdowns in that first game. They won. Their second game got canceled to COVID precautions. And then the bleep hit the fan because dad went on ESPN to then basically put themselves on blast about how they got into this situation, telling everybody that the parents basically divorced so that their son could go play one last season of college football. And he even admitted that him and his wife were going to reconcile after his son's senior season.
If that
and now the Georgia High School, the State High School Athletic Association came back to look at the situation and ruled him ineligible.
They said, hold on, player.
Yeah, okay. Like they said, wait a second. This is not the spirit of the rule.
Right.
That we now, by the letter of the rule, it is correct. The household is broken. He's moved down. But like, no, that's not. We know what you were actually trying to do. I can't believe, I just honestly can't believe that somebody had the audacity to pull this off.
Right. I don't even know how that conversation, all three of us are married, me, you, and Sasha. I don't know how that conversation would go. Hey, honey, look, Junior's got to play some football. This is the only way he can play. What do you think? I can't see any woman be like, yeah, cool, man. Kick me to the curb for a little while. I'm going to stay out here in California while you two knuckleheads go to Georgia. Then it don't work out. Oh, women got memories like elephants. He's going to hear about this probably to the day he dies. You remember when you made that dumb decision?
That's what I want to know. I want to know. I have so many follow-up questions for them as a couple, because I want to know, was this his idea? I just don't believe that this was her idea. It doesn't feel like it was. And so Sasha's shaking her head. No, she knows. So it's just crazy to me that it would have worked. Had he not, and he didn't just go on some he went on ESPN and bragged about this. Right. And so I just don't understand. To me, two things. One, I want to know about how the conversation got started, because it's crazy. And then two, why was this so important to do, given he's already a 4-star kid that's committed to USC? So not only is he going to play college football, he's going to a quarterback factory. He's going to one of the best places in the country to be a quarterback. So with a long quarterback history. So why are we doing this? Why do we even do all this?
Only thing I could think of is maybe he was trying to get some looks from SEC teams. Maybe Georgia.
In his mind, he really was kind of hoping.
If I go down there and light it up, I'm gonna be a Georgia recruit or something like that. That's the only thing I can think of. But the best question, I think the question I'd ask him, I was like, hey, can you two reenact this conversation so we can all go home and try it? You know what I'm saying? It's but then also take them aside and take the dumb dad that's running his mouth, right? Because they always say women gossip. Obviously,
no, it's men. Men are the worst. We're worse.
We're worse, right?
We're worse.
The state of Georgia, what kind of rule is that? You only can come down here if your parents are divorced and you got a broken home? I mean, that's like Georgia saying, how dare you make fun of our backwoods Georgia type of rule and go on TV and tell everybody how stupid we are. So now guess what we're going to do? We're going to discipline you.
But see, this is the thing though too, because we saw this a little bit locally, right? Where teams, because OPS is not playing high school football, and there have been people that have tried to transfer and they're denied. They couldn't do it. There's been a couple that it's been able to work, and I'm not even 100% sure how those work, because one of the things that immediately came up, I remember when OPS made that decision is okay, are you guys going to relax the transfer rules? And they really haven't. No,
we got you hijacked. You staying right here.
Which again is weird. If you want to really be about the betterment and the well-being of young student athletes, then if they really want to go, you just let them go. Except for if you want to move across the country and your parents are going to fake a divorce, say they're going to get back together just so their son can play quarterback down in Georgia. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. When you sent me the article, I did have to stop. I pulled over and started laughing just because I'm just trying to think how that conversation went. And it's not only the first conversation, because if to get a decision, you got to come 2 or 3 times.
And it's one of those things where we have to launch a whole plan to be able to do something like this.
And
it's wild.
And then you just come in there if this is an office, and we really going to go through with it just so you can play 6 games of high school football? Because in his case, even if he wanted to get extra looks, he could just done 7-on-7.
That's the other thing that I don't understand is, so, okay, you're right. So he's not an offensive guard where, it's hard for him to really show anything. Like California has 7-on-7.
Right.
I'm sure he plays on some good 7-on-7 team in California. So he would have still been able to, as a quarterback, continue to get looks like that.
He could have went to one of those quarterback gurus.
Right.
Just put out a tape.
They all live in California.
They all live in California anyways.
Or he could have just stuck with his pledge like it seemed like he will to USC and be okay.
And play, and I think they're starting up high school football in California in like January.
Yeah, they are playing in January. But he probably, as a quarterback, I'm sure he's an early enrollee, so he probably won't. Okay, well, but like even that, my whole thing is what I would have done in his situation or a parent situation is you're going to continue working like 7-on-7 with a quarterback guru, that sort of thing. You'll continue to stay up on your schoolwork so that you can continue to make sure you graduate early, and then you just go to SC early.
Right.
There's no need for you. We don't need to do all of this and orchestrate all of this for you to be able to play.
I wonder if his dad just wanted to be the dad of the number one, a top ranked quarterback one more year. It's got to be something. Because crazy. It can't be that you wanted to play 6 games. 6 games? Because if you play 6 games in high school, 4 of them you're probably gonna blow them out, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna really play 2, I call them white knuckle games in high school, and then I guess the playoffs. Knowing they might lose the first game. So it's really it has to be something off the wall reason, because it's probably one of the dumbest things I think I've heard.
It's just crazy when you just think about it. We might need more info. Also, I totally forgot this. There's a Husker tie there. Of course there is. His dad is Randy Garcia, who played here in the 70s.
Oh, come on, man. You make my neck cramp up, man.
See, I'm just saying, there is a Husker tie there. Well, what a crazy story.
With Randy, if I see Randy, you better hope I ain't been drinking.
If you see him, I need you to call me because I have so many questions.
If I see Randy, I will tell you. I will have him on the breakdown live on Instagram. I will video it and I'll have Sasha break it down because I'm going to ask him some questions. You are now live, and we got to figure this out, man.
We got to figure it out. So who are you putting on blast?
I'm putting 2 people on blast. Mainly one, and it's, if you haven't heard, Jalen Ramsey and Golden Showtime Tate had probably the best. You can look at UFC and boxing. They probably had the best fight in the last 2 months after a football game. So they didn't play 60 minutes of hard-nosed football, and them two met at a lot of times I'll tell you this. When you're in a game, I probably have told, in realistic, 50 different players, I'll meet you after the game. Okay.
Okay. It's just kind of a common thing. We just added something.
Like if you cut block me from behind, meet me after the game. Okay. I'm coming to your locker room. Very rarely do you see guys go at it in the middle of the field, especially with no fans, and just throwing haymakers.
Yep.
Now the backstory is Golden Tate, obviously a great receiver in my opinion. From Notre Dame, obviously played in Seattle, Philly. Now he's with the Giants. Has a sister. I think she ran track at Ole Miss, down in Tennessee. Has 2 children by Jalen Ramsey. One, they were together. Okay,
always get it.
Well, the first one they were together early. Yep. It ended his Florida State career early in his Jacksonville career. Yeah. He got her pregnant again, right? Yep. And they still were together. Then he ran into like an Instagram model, right?
Oh no!
And kicked Showtime Tate's sister to the curb. And now he's with the Instagram model and had a kid with her. Probably maybe cross reference that maybe they pregnant at the same time. And Golden Tate is not only hurt, sister's hurt. That's his sister, man.
Yeah, now we got to fight.
Right.
See, that's how we get there. Okay.
And Golden Tate, a man of his word, he said even when it happened, he knows he's got to come see me. So I just want to know, and I'm only putting him on blast because Jalen Ramsey, come on, player. Like, I'm going to tell you like this. There's a rule in the NFL locker room. You don't mess with another teammate's or, opponent's sister or family. You don't, you know what I'm saying? That's just what you don't. And if you do, you better lock that down because
you better actually stay married
and be with it, because when it doesn't work out, you in some trouble. It's like with Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas' sister.
I was going to say, it reminds me of Paul George and Callie Rivers.
And Doc Rivers, right? I'm surprised. And then Kawhi said he wanted him. I'm like, hold on now.
Yeah,
right?
That whole situation. Yeah, those situations get messy.
So, Golden Tate, told him, "You're gonna have to see me." So after the game was over, they went at it, and they went at it like some bulls too. And it was, I mean, even your boy Nick Gates was up in there, trying to play referee. But hey,
shout out to Nick Gates, who also tried to fight Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald pushed. Hey, did you see Aaron Donald?
I'm scared right now just thinking about it.
But why did Aaron Donald push him in his helmet? And then Nick Gates must have said something like, "Why you do it?" So then he took the 2 fingers and then poked him in his eye. He do that right there, the old Bubba Baker, right from the Cleveland Browns on it. But I would tell you this from back to Showtime tape. I'm only putting him on blast because Jalen Ramsey, you just way out there and you sloppy. You know what I'm saying? You just out there. But I'll give it to Jalen Ramsey. He brought the funk to Golden Tate, so that probably was sitting in it.
He didn't back down.
He didn't back down. But you should have known it was coming, and I'm guessing. So and then they said that Jalen Ramsey won a round 2 at the locker room. So I'm gonna tell you this: I'm waiting for round 3. I might even have to, if they play somewhere close.
You gonna try to get in there?
Oh, I got to go see that, man. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, they're gonna go at it.
Yeah, it'll happen.
When you think about Josh Norman and Bryant when he was with the Panthers, and
was it Michael Crabtree?
Michael Crabtree.
He got his chain snatched.
You got his chain. Who it was? It was personal.
Aqib Talib. Is who that was.
It's personal, man. And these are the things that when you think of Joey Porter fighting the guy in Las Vegas. Levi Jones, right? Down there in Vegas.
It takes a lot to fight. Like, it's funny, it hit me because we remember these ones that happen because they don't happen that often.
Right.
Yeah,
so
like you said, you start off, 50 guys you done told throughout your career that you want to fight, but it really don't actually work out that way.
Right.
So it means something when you actually
And then also, like, when you fight in practice, it's over by the time you get in the locker room.
Yeah.
Because it's generally... You just laugh about it, or you kind of just move on from it. And in a couple of days, you kind of mend the fences. This ain't over. They're gonna be fighting each other at 60 years old. Remember when they had the video of Joe Cap fighting the other dude up in Canada, or like you remember when Shannon Sharp was talking when he was with the Broncos. He was talking junk to one of the guys on the Chiefs about they were dating a stripper and stuff like that, and they got in his head. And I mean, guys, it's personal, man. When you either mess with somebody's girl, or you, in this case, you mess over somebody's little sister.
Yeah, it'll always end up bubbling back up.
It's bubbling back up. So I had to put my man. I like Jalen Ramsey. I like the way he plays, but man, he should have known it was coming. He should have known it was coming, and you should have known Golden Tate ain't no punk, and he's cockstrong.
Yep, that's. I mean, I think that's a great place to leave it for this week. It has been a very fun, lively first real episode of the Straight Up Breakdown podcast. Subscribe to this podcast everywhere that you can listen to them. Rate us, review us, leave us a 5-star review. If you only leave us 4 stars, I'm inclined to think you're a hater, and you do not want that. Make sure that you are checking out all the other podcasts on the Hail Varsity Network, the Mind Your Own podcast, Varsity Club, More to It, and the Hail Varsity Radio Show, and we will catch you next time.